Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm just going to prop this so that there we go. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited about this interview today. I'm sitting here with one of the most amazing souls that I know, Asha Frost. Asha is an Indigenous spiritual mentor. She is a medicine woman, a homeopath, so she's got so much to offer. And she really helps women get down to that inherent ability to heal themselves, like to really find that medicine within them and using the medicine within nature, which is amazing. So I'm going to have her speak to that a little bit as well. And she just signed a book deal and her book is coming out next year. So I'll have her speak about that as well. So welcome, Asha.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, today we're talking about birthing for Indigenous women. And so before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about you and how you came to do what you do?
Yeah, so I grew up north of Toronto in Newmarket, and the First Nation that I have membership with is called Neoshinagabing, which is Chippewas of Newash First Nation, and my dad is from another First Nation in Ontario, but I grew up here. So, I grew up surrounded by a lot of non-Indigenous folks, and during that time, I think I just sort of tried to assimilate into the way things were in Newmarket at the time. And even though in my home, my mother always nurtured our medicines and she always spoke about creator and animal beings and plants, I didn't grow up with that around me all the time due to colonization and residential schools. There's a lot of broken history there. So and I got sick when I was 17 and I was diagnosed with lupus. And that just kind of cracked everything open. It really, at the time, I took some medication and they were too harsh for my sensitive body.
Yes.
So then I saw a naturopath when I was that age. And that's really what started me on this journey is I found naturopathy. And then I found homeopathy through naturopathy because at the time I was seeing this amazing naturopath who was really well versed in homeopathy. And I just fell in love. And I was like, I need to do this. I want to do this and I want to learn how to heal myself from the earth. I want to learn how to heal my spirit. And my whole life I'd seen spirit. My whole life I was extremely sensitive as a child. I was an empath. I could feel what everyone was feeling. I was a seer. But I just kind of thought it was like that for everyone. So when I started on my healing journey, that was when I saw healers and they said, there's a lot of your ancestors are calling you to a purpose. Will you listen? And so that illness helped me to start listening.
That's amazing. I really love that. So I remember you mentioning that, or I guess we were talking about kind of your birthing experience. And so you have 2 children, right? So can you speak to how or I guess the type of care that you got and your experience during your pregnancy and your birth and even postpartum period as an Indigenous woman?
Yes. And I don't know if this would be everyone's experience, but I think looking back, I think in the moment I wasn't really aware of the trauma that happened during that time. And I recently was just speaking with a birth worker about this because she was asking me different questions and I thought there's a lot of trauma there still. So because I have lupus, my pregnancies were deemed high risk both times. And because of that, I couldn't have a midwife. I could have a doula, but I couldn't have a midwife. And that news, when I first got that, was really heartbreaking because I think I had a vision of having a home birth, having drum songs played, having all these beautiful like medicines burned, different traditional things that I felt like maybe my soul was wanting, but not having a midwife, that was taken away. So my birth felt very colonized and my birth felt very disconnected to what I think for what my ancestors had and what they were used to and maybe what part of my spirit was wanting. So that kind of got broken for my first birth. And that was sort of heartbreaking, I think, when I think back to that. And then the second birth that I had, because again, I have lupus, there's like an antibody that was a risk for the baby. So I was really, really highly monitored. And I really fought back about that because I do trust my body. I do trust in my vital force and my ability to heal myself. So it was a lot of me advocating for myself, saying, I trust that everything is well and I don't have to go to sick kids every week. and stress myself out driving
Yes.
downtown once a week to check on his heart because I feel like he's okay. So I think
Yes.
that I felt like the advocating for myself felt a little challenging because I wish I didn't have to do that. And they would maybe
Mhm.
see the wholeness of who I was and trust in my own medicine ways too. But that
Right.
didn't happen. So I think it was traumatic when I speak about it. Yeah.
Right. I think that in today's society, I mean, even previously, there's so much fear around pregnancy and birth. And I think there's a lot of fear that's instilled in women, even something as simple as like, oh, you're going to have a big baby, we should induce you and things like that. And I mean, as a doula myself, I always try to encourage women to just kind of, trust their bodies, trust their babies, and, trust their intuition. So I'm so happy you touched on that because I feel like a lot of people can relate. I feel like a lot of people are pushed through the medical system and, their birth preferences aren't honored, and that can cause a lot of trauma, even though maybe the birth itself maybe went, oh yeah, you had your vaginal delivery and all this stuff. If they don't feel supported and they don't feel heard during their birth, it can be very traumatic. And
Yeah.
so I guess you feel like a lot of those traditions around your birth weren't really there. Did your ancestors have those? Like, did your ancestors have more like midwives present and home births? And is that
Yeah.
kind of, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, very
probably
cool.
not, I wouldn't say like close relative, I wouldn't say like my grandmother, but I would say before that there would be a lot of earth-based practices and ways of healing even after postpartum, right? I mean, and I could do those things. So that was really
Yes.
great. But I am like, when you say that, I am curious because my first birth was very traumatic. And I do wonder if part of that is breaking some of that colonized way, because I broke my pelvis, and I wonder sometimes
Yeah.
if that breaking was like breaking through some of the like white supremacy colonization ways that was happening during that time, but I wasn't aware of that. I was just in a lot of pain, but I
Yeah.
do wonder what we broke. Both
Right.
my son and I together, our souls kind of broke for the generations to come.
Isn't that cool? And I really love that you're touching on this because it kind of brings me to my next question, which is, the way we birth and the way we're birthed as people, I believe really affects the way we go through life. And so can you touch on that a little bit? And like you were saying, you and your son, you really feel kind of broke through something there. Do you believe that women really do, like the way they birth and the way we're birthed into the world has an effect?
I do. Well, I believe, the womb is our first sacred water. That's our first medicine. We're in that
Mm.
sacred water for that whole time. If it's 40 weeks or less or a little bit more, I think that just marinates us energetically and
Yeah.
whatever our mother's feeling during that time. So it really starts upon that conception place. And then when we're birthed, yeah, I believe like if I just can compare both of my son's births, I think
Mm-hmm.
my second birth was much easier. And of course, I was terrified of that trauma happening again. And that's something I couldn't trust that wouldn't happen again because I didn't know that I'd healed that. But he is such a different child. He's just, it's like, I could see the ancestral and generational trauma that was kind of broken and healed in my first birth, and it was reflected in my second birth. My other child is just really confident and comfortable in the world, and just like
Mm.
he's just really just different, a different spirit. And of course we're all different in that way, but I do think that birth experience really shaped them both in those ways.
That's amazing. That's really cool. I love that. And do you find that there are certain biases that Indigenous women in particular experience during in medicine in general, in the healthcare system, but then more specifically in the perinatal field?
Yes, I've shared this story that I've experienced racism at our hospital. That wasn't during my birth experience, but it was, I had a 2-year-old at home and I had pneumonia and I was very sick. And
Mm.
at the time, I mean, I wear my beaded earrings kind of all the time. So I think I just decided that I was going to go to a hospital. I had them on and I wore my mucklucks. So that's what I wear in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And I got there and there wasn't any care. And I know people could always say, well, I didn't get care either. And I understand that. But the doctor came in hours later and I thought I was going to die. I could not breathe. And he said
Mm-hmm.
to me, hi, ma'am, do you have a home? And I said, yes. And he said, and how much alcohol have you drank today? And I said, none. And
Oh, geez.
and I didn't click it at the time because I was so not present with how I was in my body or any of that. Really why he asked me that. Because I've been to the hospital other times, perhaps not wearing the same sort of, things,
Yes.
and have never been asked those questions. So
Yes.
that was a very stark, and I've heard that a lot about our hospital for Indigenous folks going in and not getting the care that they need, and really racist things happening like that, very similarly.
Yes.
So that is a yes. Yeah, that happens. I mean, during my birth, my birth, help during that time. I didn't experience that per se. But then again, we don't know how bias plays out. We don't know how it's hard to compare my story to somebody else's and see maybe what might have happened if I wasn't Indigenous. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think bias looks different for everyone, right? And I think more recently now we're learning more and more about it, right? Where kind of our eyes are being more opened to it. And it's really too bad. I think a big part of the problem is in the healthcare system, right? And that a lot of women aren't getting the care they need. They're not given the tools that they need to get well. And that just causes, a whole slew of other issues, of course. So in your opinion, what do you think needs to change maybe at like a healthcare level, a societal level, or even as individuals in order for Indigenous women and BIPOC women in general to get the care that they need and the empowerment, during their birth and everything that they have the right to?
Oh, that's a big question.
It is. It's a heavy question, and you may not know the answer to it, but I'm very curious of your opinion.
I think it starts with, I can speak to the wellness field because it's something that's really up right now, right? Everybody's speaking about lack of diversity and inclusion and equity, because I've had my business for 17 years. This is maybe a little off track, but it's interesting. I've worked really hard. We were just talking before this about not taking any leave, when we have babies and all these things, and just working right through and just watching how white women rise a lot faster in their online business or in other ways, and for the longest time I was trying to assimilate. I was like, I can do this. I'm not going to be aware of any of that. Like, it was sort of like that trauma of like, nope, that's not going to be impacting me. And then I started to see, oh my goodness, women of color, it is more challenging to be successful in your business. And then I took some courses around diversity and saw the truth of that. And then it just hit me. It was like grief, that thought, oh my goodness, this is really true. It's something I've been avoiding, but it's a truth, and it would make me shake. So that is like the first piece. I think we have to start looking at how that plays out in all aspects of our lives. And it does start with the individual. We can only make change if we're looking internally at even like the questions like, what are the sort of biases maybe I don't want to admit to, but what have I heard about Indigenous people? I just did a post on Canada Day, and the comments, right? People just like love to write like, oh, you're a victim. Oh, pull up your bootstraps. Everybody's had a hard life. Like, and it's just like reading the common things that people say about Indigenous people, like Indigenous people don't have to pay taxes and they get all this stuff for free, which is not true. I pay my taxes every year. I don't get any handouts that these people think that are always saying. My grandmother lives in reserve that does not have clean water. It's 20 minutes away from a city that has clean water. Like, our youth are dying from suicide and violence and alcohol abuse and drug abuse at alarming rates. Our women are being murdered and they go missing, and the government doesn't care. This is still happening. And this is a result of colonization and oppression and marginalization and the residential schools. So I think we have to look at those biases, and we have to look at how we're perpetuating them maybe in different ways, even in business. I think that's where I can speak from, because I think that's what my experience is. But we can only unpack our own stuff, because that's going to flood to our children. That's going to pass on in ripples in our work. That's going to start to like conversations that we need to have.
Right. I really do think like the children, it's all about the children right now, and really teaching them, because they're the future, right? And they're the ones that are going to make the most impact. And you wrote an essay called Dear White Woman. I think it's what, Dear White Woman, you think you want to look like me?
Who wants to be like me? Who wants
to be? Yeah. And I loved reading that essay because, and I really invite you guys to listen to it or to read it, because it's really powerful in the way Asha writes it. And you know, we tend to just see kind of everything on the outside, right? And we don't really know what's going on internally, what's going on in someone's past, and really the biases surrounding different races. And so I really love that essay. So I know, you know, there's midwives and there's doulas right now who are Indigenous women, but even not Indigenous women who are making it their goal to really empower Indigenous women. So there's even the Toronto Birth Center downtown now, which is Indigenous centered. I love all the little things they have in there, but you probably have your own opinion about, you know, what needs to change. I don't know if you ever visited it. Have you ever been there?
No.
Okay. It's very beautiful there. And, you know, they try to adhere to some of the traditions, but of course, you know, I'm sure they can't burn incense and burn other things. And I'm pretty sure you could do drumming and that kind of stuff there. You should look into it. I'm curious to kind of know your thoughts about it. But do you think that it's essential that women really reach out to doulas and to midwives who can appreciate those traditions and allow you to have those throughout your birth so that you can have the empowered birth you look for?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think, I guess, like when I think back, I knew of that birth center the second, but you still needed to be able to have a midwife.
Yeah, you can't.
So it's not accessible. I think that's maybe where the and maybe I didn't look hard enough, and there is accessibility for folks who are birthing who need to have accessibility to that, and the medical system is saying, you know, you have to go this route, because that was a really big gap for me, because I just didn't have that support. So that was really challenging. But yeah, I think that is so vital for, I mean, any woman who's connected. And I mean, technically we all should be connected to our ancestral ways, and we all have practices in our lineage that are how our ancestors birthed. I think that probably would help that remembering to be really, really beautiful in our lives. So I think for Indigenous women, yes, and for South Asian women, yes, and Black women, yes. You know, there's probably many ways our ancestors did birth and held ceremony for birth that would be so impactful for us to birth.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you were mentioning with your first son how he kind of like broke the mold in a way, and how they're just so very different. Do you see kind of their personalities and the way they were brought into the world really impacting, you know, their decisions in life and kind of how they navigate the world?
Yes, I do. My first son, I feel like he's very sensitive, highly sensitive, very much like I was. And and I've asked him permission to share this story, when he was in kindergarten, he did not want to go to school. And I was very much the same way. And I was curious about this, why, you know, he'd been in daycare like his whole life, basically. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. But he would say things like, don't let them snatch me away. Don't let them snatch me away. And I was like, where is that coming from, you know? And his father is Jewish. Well, he's Jewish. He's Jewish Indigenous. So, you know, he's got this Holocaust memories, these residential school memories that are just in his great-grandparent lineage, you know, very close. Right. So when that came through, I thought, oh, you know, he's really carrying a lot of this generational trauma still inside of him. I need to help him. I need to help him to clear this out, because I don't want to continue this trauma forward.
Right.
So that really set something off in me. So that was when he was 4. So that was 4 years ago. And that was when I was like, I need to take a stand. I need to that's really what started me thinking, how do I write this letter? How do I start speaking? How do I start, you know, because for so long we've been suppressed. So I suppressed my own voice. So that really showed up in that way. And I can just see, like, even the way he sleeps. He's a dreamer. He's active at night. Like, he's very connected to the spirit world, which is really beautiful. And as we know, you know, if we go through trauma and we're carrying that, it can be a bit of a tougher go in life, right? Because there's
absolutely
heavy stuff to go through. So
absolutely,
I feel that for him. Whereas my other son doesn't seem to have that. He really doesn't. And I just wonder if somehow the work I did before my pregnancy with my second child, there was 5 years too between them. So I think I needed that time. To clear that out. And not that we can be perfect in any way, or even like we can't feel shame or guilt for not doing that work before we knew.
Yes.
because those souls come in, I believe, to say like, okay, I'm going to do this work with you, or I'll be your inspiration to do the work, or we'll do it together. Right?
Yeah.
That's so
That's very
glorious.
cool. And so what is it that you do that can help clear that kind of ancestral memory or trauma from the past? So like some of your offerings that you do, what is it specifically that, is it circles? Is it one-on-one? Like what is it that is the best in terms of clearing stuff like that? Because I'm interested in even for my kids, like I'm very, very interested in this.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I stepped away from my private practice. I'd say like the majority of that work happened during one-on-one sessions. And we'll see, you know, right now it's like, okay, my son turned 3, we'll see how things shift again in that way. But circles help, you know, I in my membership, we do circles and we do ancestral work all the time to clear, because I think it's like a practice. It needs to be happening. Like you do one layer and then it's like, okay, now something else is coming forward so I can clear that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's even just intention or recognition, like, oh, that feels like it's not from me or only me, that it's like an ancestral wound, just feeling the vibration of that in your body.
Yes.
I think
I
is
feel
really
that sometimes all the time, like all the time. I'm just like, this is not me. Like, I don't know where this feeling is coming from all of a sudden. Like, this is not me. Or even fears, right? You have these fears. You're like, why am I afraid of that? That's never even happened to me. And so I'm such a firm believer that it's probably something that stemmed from like my mother or my grandparents, or, you know, a fear that's kind of like passed down. And
yeah.
it's so cool.
It is.
Very
I think there's
interesting.
just different ways for sure, but I think just even the acknowledgement starts something happening, right? And I will pray to my ancestors, like, I don't want to pass this through my body anymore. Whatever contract I made to pass through the pain through my own physical body, I'm done with that. But I do a lot of work, a lot of self-work. It's just like, that feels like my true job sometimes, to do my own inner work. And then the wisdom that comes from that comes out in the teachings and the offerings that I give. But that's a huge one. But, you know, you gave me a little inspiration to perhaps do a course just around that ancestral healing, because I think that it's really important.
Yeah, it's very neat. Well, you let me know as soon as you launch that, because I'll be the first one to sign up. Okay, well, your Sacred Circle membership, what does that entail? Is that just becoming like a part of your online community and then looking into the different offerings you have, or do you have like a structure to it?
Yeah, there's a structure to it. It's a
Okay.
lot of live content, actually. That's the place
Cool.
where, after I stepped away from my private practice, I thought, how can I serve globally, like more people? Because as you know, private practice, like we can only serve as many people as we have time for. And then it starts to be like, okay, well, I'm being called for something else. So it's a circle membership. It's a sacred place where it's like medicine. You know, I'm doing my full moon circle later today. So it's either a full moon or new moon or solstice equinox circle, where we gather in ceremony together. And then there's like, I have a guest come in once a month as a guest teacher. I have readings, like live card readings and medicine messages, and just different ways, like mentorship as well, because I love to mentor healers and creatives and sensitive souls who are wanting to step in their medicine and put it out in the world. So that's my favorite part of that, is just like helping people, intuitively mentoring them, and from my own business experience too. Right. So it's a pretty live space. Like I'm in there quite a bit. It's the place that I put all my energy into.
That's amazing. Okay, well, definitely everybody should look into being a part of that community for sure. So your book that's coming out, I'm so excited for you. I can't wait. Have you started writing it already, or do you have
Well, my children are in care starting next week, so it's going to be, I'm going to start that next week. So, but I had to do the proposal, right, which took quite a long time. So I have the structure and the outline. I just have to fill it in.
It's so exciting. And are you allowed to kind of talk about what it's going to entail, like what it's about? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's called You Are the Medicine. And
Beautiful.
Because over the years of practice and seeing so many people, and homeopathy, you know, it's like just that little reminder, like all we need is a little catalyst to say, like, you have a vital force, you have this healing ability, you can heal yourself. And so putting that power back on the individual to say, like, I'm here to hold space for you. I'm the facilitator, but you ultimately come forward with your own medicine to heal. So it's based on the Ojibwe moon cycles.
That's
And then
pretty
some
neat.
animal spirit medicine. Yeah.
Right. So Are the Ojibwe moon cycles different from like the moon cycles that you regularly see? Are they different or are they the same?
It depends on what moon cycle you're thinking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So maybe I'm probably not the right person to ask this then because I don't know enough about it.
Well, no, like there's like you'll see sometimes say different names of the moons, right? Like Rosalba
Yes.
moon was a so your Ojibwe moons
Right.
they have different names, and a lot of those names come from different tribes across North America,
Okay.
and people just kind of like to take the fanciest. In my opinion, that's what I see, right? It's like they take the fanciest, most beautiful name and they use it. But so
Oh,
today's
so funny.
raspberry moon. Last month was a strawberry moon, and today's the raspberry moon, and we're really deepening into like kindness for ourselves, and we're in the summer season, so we're nurturing really like our dreams and our visions right now.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, I know we talked about a lot of, like, honestly, I thought this interview was going to be so much longer, but we just condensed so much information into like such a tiny bit of time. Um, I feel like everything that you said just really resonated with me, and I think it's going to resonate with all of the other women and even men who follow here and listen to the interview, because I think women and people in general really need to know, you know, the biases that go on within the healthcare system around perinatal care and birthing, and just biases in general, right? And the fact that they can do work around that. You know, obviously, I think that the socioeconomic and the healthcare system and everything needs to change, and I'm hoping over time it does. I think it's going to be a long process, you know. But if people could understand that they could do their own personal work, but in the meantime, right before that big change has happened, then I think that they can move through life in a less traumatic way, which is kind of cool. Like you yourself, you knew going into your second birth that you still weren't going to get, you know, your home birth or the midwife that you wanted, but you did the work, right? And you knew that, okay, I just need to process the emotions and let go of kind of expectations and really kind of tap into the medicine and the healing. And I think that that created a more empowered birth for you in the long run, right? Despite who your healthcare givers were,
That's
which is
right.
kind of nice.
It is nice because I think it just shows that you do have the power to make changes and to heal yourself truly, even if the outside circumstances aren't exactly what you wish them to be.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Asha, for being here. And I'm so happy that we had this interview and this conversation. I think you're such a beautiful soul, beautiful woman, and I love the work that you're doing. For anybody listening, I'm going to put Asha's information below as well, so you'll be able to contact her and follow her on her social media. Is there anything else, Asha, that you would like to talk about? Any offerings that you're doing right now, or?
No, I mean, people can find me at Sacred for the sacredmembership.com. That is really where I'm showing up the most right now. And I'm always offering mentorship, but that just sold out yesterday. So I was going to say
Oh, good for you.
that's really fast. So yeah. So
That's
that's
amazing.
open. Yeah.
Okay, well, for next time then. For next time, right?
Yeah. And buy the book when it comes out too. That was
Yes.
really amazing.
Yes, I can't wait for this book to come out. I think it's going to open up a lot of eyes. So I'm really excited about it. Thank you so much, Asha.
Thank you, Jessica.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
You too.
Okay.